Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to next Wasteless World Talks. And I'm here with Kevin, missing Bill again. And we have one very special term. Hands mean hands. So if you close your eyes, Kevin, and you hear the term hands, what came first to your mind?
I thought of almost everything made before the introduction of robots in the whole world was made by hands. You know, we made cathedrals, we made canals, bridges, whatever, you name it. Our hands are amazing. We can build almost everything with them. So in a way, it's everything, it's all human achievement. It's done with our hands.
And it is so. And still, we somehow overlook the hands. We don't pay too much attention to those. You know, you remember the time when COVID hit and you cannot shake the hands. It was a very strange meeting to meet without. So you have this, oh no, we cannot. But then I do remember the first time when it went down and we can meet again. And it was a very special feeling when you can stretch the hand and the other person hold it and you shake your hands again. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and I was thinking the reason why we shake hands is to show that we don't have weapons and we don't have intent to attack. So it's a way of saying, I'm friendly, I'm peaceful.
Uh-huh. Didn't know about it. That's interesting.
But it's also, it is just, you know, we're a very tactile species. So we need our hands to touch. We touch each other, we touch things, we touch everything. And it's really nice reassurance to touch one another.
What is interesting that different cultures have a different approach, of course. So if both of us, we shake the hands is normal. If you do it somewhere in Southeast Asia, the people can be quite confused, especially if you would like to hug them or put the hand on the head for whatever reason. It can be like insult generally. So it's quite interesting. And in the noon event, which is called the power of touch, and then we spoke about hands. So it was quite interesting connection. And there was Michael Van Jose, who is the Industry 5.0 ambassador in Africa. And he said, we are very touchy. So the Africans and hands, it's so important for them. They can hardly imagine without the touch.
And hands is a part of our speech. We don't just speak with our mouths. We use our hands at the same time. So they are communication tools.
On the other hand, if you are writing a book, you use the fingers, of course, but you communicate with the reader without your hands. So you have to be so great that the people keep in and say, wow, it's so fascinating. But you don't have your hands in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's true. But like you say, we write with them anyway. So they're behind the scenes, but they're still there.
It's do you believe there are some people call it invisible hands, which move the politics, which speaks from God, or there are many ways?
There are both good and evil. You know, there are puppeteers, there's people behind the scenes pulling on strings, but not for the benefit of all of us, but for the benefit of the few. And then there are, of course, our angels who will guide us and steer us and put us in the right direction. So there are both kinds of hidden hands at work.
On the other hand, we spoke many times about giants, and we know what this, when we speak about it, what it means. And I don't think giants use their hands. They use their feet to destroy something. But I don't think they use their hands.
I think that for giants, lawyers are their hands. Lawyers and politicians, they do all the handiwork, both good and bad.
I will say that the giants, maybe their hands are somehow not disappear, but because they don't use them at all, they are being fed by someone. Someone give them to drink, so they don't generally use the hands for. They don't use it for anything, and maybe they are.
No,
I don't know the term right now. If you don't use something, it get what? What is the English expression? Like degradation, but
yeah, atrophied. I think one thing is for certain with the hands of the giants, there's no fingerprints on those things.
that's
Or they certainly
interesting.
try to avoid leaving any fingerprints at all. So I think their hands are print free.
On the other hand, their fingers may be print free, but their presence, especially connected to digital footprint, I think currently can be tracked quite nicely.
Yep, that's for sure. And yeah, they leave evidence of their handiwork. That's for sure.
I just remember last year there was some guy who set up a plane tracking app and get Elon Musk's plane, the private jet. And yeah, he has to switch it off after some time because of the jurisdiction or whatever, because they don't like it at all that they are being tracked.
No, they. It's interesting because a lot of these companies they make so much money out of exploiting our privacy and selling it, but they don't like their own privacy being interfered with in any way at all. Have you seen in the US now all the CEOs of the healthcare and insurance companies? They've taken their names and their faces off the internet.
I haven't seen it. I know why, because of the shooting that was here presented in the country as well. I don't think it's a right solution. Even celebrating the guy who shoot another guy to be a right solution, I don't think so. But you know, it's quite interesting because in my country, in Czech Republic, we have something. If you have a company established, your name appear on internet generally something like a library of all. It's your name. Generally, you can track your age because of the birthday, sometime even more. And a few years ago, 2 years ago or so, they started with deleting some of the informations, especially with the big players, very similar to what you just described. There was no picture, there was just written information, the official information for the registration. But it was interesting. They call it, they did it because they would like to improve transparency.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But that's the thing. I think that transparency is not something that the giants and the rich want at all, in any way at all. It's the last thing they want is transparency. I was watching the last few days. Germany's biggest car manufacturer is in big financial trouble at the moment, and there's one of the owning families takes 1 billion euros a week out of that company in dividends. That is an awful lot of money for one family to be having. And I don't think they were so happy to have this news reported at all.
I do believe that it will have a consequences. So not for the giants generally, more for the media itself. There was, there exists the right to repair for things, computers, whatever. In many US states, it was forbidden to repair. So, and it was introduced, I think the first one, New York, then some other states. But generally, in many countries, it's something similar. We just don't speak about it. And there was just before we met, I put into the newsletter, quite interesting news from Germany. Somebody repaired and put the repair on YouTube because he is a guy who repairs things and record it and comment it and repair for the others to follow. And it was a very expensive audio device, 30,000 euro. and he opened it and find out that the cheapest components are there. Repair it, give it back, repair, and put a video online. The next day it was down. Somebody requested Google, probably the original producer, and then some other guy who repair as well get the video out of YouTube and put it on his own channel so it is still accessible, but not on YouTube, which is in the hand of the child. And it was quite interesting. And at that moment came to my mind, because I was thinking many times about the right to repair, why they say it's illegal or something like that. And it didn't get in my mind, because it's logical that I would like to repair my thing or let it repair instead of buying new one. And I realized with that, they don't want us to know from which components it is made, the price, because you will be easily recognize that a 30,000 euro device, you pay 100 for the technology and 29,900 for the brand.
Yeah, it's gone even worse. I don't know if you've heard of, in the US, there's a tractor manufacturer called John Deere.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're the biggest manufacturer of tractors in the US. If you buy a new tractor from them, you buy it, you pay $100,000, however much it is. You don't own the software inside the tractor.
Uh-huh.
And so if the tractor breaks down, only John Deere can repair it. You're not allowed to touch it yourself. You can't open the boxes. You can't do anything. And of course, these things are used primarily during the harvest season, which is when you find out that it's not working. And so then you'll lose your harvest, because not like the old days where you could fix it. Now you're forbidden to touch it. You don't own the ability to repair this thing. And you can see it. This is one blatant example of exploitation, but you can see it across Apple. They changed the screws so that nobody else but them can open up their computers. No one else can repair them. And iPhones are specifically made not to be repairable. You have to give it to Apple. It's and this is a problem, a huge problem, because it just creates more and more waste. You can't have it repaired. You can either pay us, not have it for a long time, or you throw it away and buy a new one.
John Deere has a factory here in South Bohemia, so I was riding along. But I didn't know about this. I know about the other items. I know about it. There, time to time, are really crazy things in the laws and regulations. Like in one of the U.S. states, I think Texas. I'm not sure about the state name, but it was forbidden to collect the water, to collect the rainwater. So you cannot have a barrels there, and it is still valid. And I think they are considering to get rid of it, but it's a 200 years old or 300 years old law, which is still valid, and it is still there, and they can apply it. And just now there was a similar case of using some old law and regulation to whatever. It was quite interesting, but I do not remember the details.
I've been watching this John Deere thing quite closely. What is happening now is that more and more farmers are actually going to the black market, where primarily from China and Russia, programmers can get around this stuff. Of course, you lose your guarantee straight away, but what use is a guarantee if you can't have the thing repaired for 3 months? And I was laughing the other day, because, there's a few online giants. They give now so many restrictions, and you have to watch advertising and all this stuff. But if you have friends from Russia, it's so easy to get around.
Not only Russia, so even the young generation, they are quite well equipped, I will say. And
yeah,
still we are on the hands, and they have the hand on the pulse of the technology. We are too slow, we don't know how to. Okay, but they are somehow growing with it. They have a slightly different feeling on it. So this is, I think, I will call this even the invisible hands, which they can apply somehow to get around or to find a solution, in which we try to find it the old way.
Yeah, we are very ingenious as a species. When I was working with Interpol, they were saying that the biggest problem they have is not with criminals, it's with creative people. Because they're the ones who can figure out how to get around systems, how to break into things which normal criminals would never stand a chance of doing. And it's like an interesting battle of wit and hand skills and handcrafts. And it's the same online. If you know, one of the giants changes its compliance rules or whatever that makes it less good to use their service, there are ways around it. There are people with the hands, and it is hand skills. It's brain and hands to get around these unreasonable restrictions. Because the freedom of the internet is becoming more and more a thing of the past, and it's becoming more and more an exploitative medium, unless you know some clever people.
It is so. So, and not all the time help to have a hammer in your hand, even certified. You see, it's certified. So
yeah, but in the right hands, it's still a precision instrument.
Even in the left hand, if you are the left-hander.
Yeah, yeah.
But why do you think that we somehow stop to value the work of the hands?
I don't think we do. I think we become more removed from it. So when you see, for example, in Notre Dame, the reopening of that cathedral, I mean, a lot of that is good old-fashioned hand skills, but we just don't see it in action so much anymore. And then it takes our breath away when we do see how beautiful we can make things by hand.
You are right. We are more remote of that. I just saw some excavators, and there was one guy who was working on 5 together at the same time. Just he was sitting in the office and all remote, and he worked on 5 at the same time.
Yeah, I think that when I was going through the English education system, there was 2 streams basically. So one was for hand skills and one was for academic skills, but they were treated more or less equally. You know, if you were going off to become a carpenter or shipwright or whatever, it was as well respected as those who are going to go and do A-levels in university. But I'm fairly certain in the UK that's not the case anymore. But I think in Germany it's still so that, you know, if you want to be an engineer, that is really not looked down upon at all. It's really well respected.
What is interesting that the people who can work with their hands are right now being, if there is a job for them, if you look for them, you are ready to pay them more than the engineers and the doctors because you need them. Something get broken, you need it, you need your fridge or whatever, and you are ready to pay them even more. So it becomes more valuable, but still it is somehow undervaluated, I will say, by the society itself who push. I was just before we met, I joined another Industry 5.0 events by European Commission, or funded project. And the experts don't know what it is, and still they are speaking about it. You know, it's so sad. And it is quite interesting. Only when they see my name, their voice start to tremble, even if they never saw me before. So I am sure there will be somewhere my photograph pictured. Be careful. The most unwanted man on your meetings.
Yeah, with a big warning. If you receive an email from this man, don't open it.
Exactly.
But I think the problem with the European Union, they have no hand skills and they have no academic skills either. It's such a shabby place at the moment. It doesn't produce anything much worthwhile. It really needs a shake up.
It is, and talked it with one of the directors, which we have regular meetings, and he said, what shall we do about it? You know, they are so unrealistic at the moment because all of us, we have to listen to them. And they put one bad decision after the another. I call it a chain of bad decisions. And everybody is referring because it's European Commission official paper, so I have to refer. You know, it's so crazy. I think, I am not sure if I mentioned last week the funding for Industry 5.0 in Italy. I spoke all the time about 6.2 billion euro. No, it's 12.7 billion euro for 2 years. If you would like, if you will live in Italy or you have a business in Italy, you will get funding just enough if you say it's Industry 5.0, because they don't know what it should be. They don't know what they should fund. If you, and you have to ask amount from 100 million above, I will say, or something like that. So they will give it to you because they, it was last week news, which was then deleted from the newsletter because of some issue in LinkedIn. And the responsible people has been crying in the article, why don't you want, we just spent 101 million, but we have 6 billion.
But I think generally with the European Union, if you take an organization and you take away its vision for the future and you take away its courage, then what you wind up with is the European Commission, the European Union. It is just in such a hopeless position at the moment. It really needs to shake up.
You know, you remember that I mentioned time to time the book, the down of the whatever, the 1924 book, which predicted Chinese in Europe and so on. I mention it time to time. And just now is reading it, one of my friends, and she said, Michael, she called me and she said, Michael, do you know what? He described European Commission. But in his book, it's called the let's say coal company or coal, whatever, conglomerate. But it's exactly, she said, it's exactly what European Commission does. It's unbelievable. 100 years old book.
Yeah.
So the question is, I don't think that the system which throw down Syria will work here. We can protest, we can do whatever, but it will not work because we are not basically we are not violent. So we do not want any violence in this size. But what will help? Because if there one politician exchange the another one, the situation stay the same, just the names will change because the system is wrong.
Yeah.
So there are right now already some discussions about, and you know my relationship to United Nations, which I call for to dissolve, but more and more people feel the same. Have you seen this year? Davos?
It came and went, didn't it?
Instead of Davos, there was Saudi Arabia, very similar type of meeting. In other places, but Davos, nowhere.
Yeah, nobody pays them any attention anymore. No one has any expectation. They won't deliver. Nobody's that, you can fool people some of the time. But people have woken up to the fact that this is not what it says on the label.
On the other hand, we have to do the same with, both of us, we live in the time when Europe was divided by borders. Some has been iron borders, some has been, let's say, more or less free borders, but still borders. We have our currencies, we have our politics and so on. So the only thing which changed is the currency that many countries has euro. That's fine. It can be kept for those who like it. And I think that countries who adopt it will keep it. It will be, I think, wrong decision to go back to the national currencies. But other countries who does not like my country, they will have their own. The question is what the borders will do. So, but then I think every country will have a quite significant amount of money available, if not this money not paid to European Commission and all the politicians sitting in here and doing bad decisions. So I think it will be quite interesting recovery way.
Something has to happen. I mean, you can see at the moment in Europe, there's no vision for ending the conflict in Ukraine. Europe is sitting on its hands waiting for America to do something because they're all so timid they don't dare open their mouths. Germany is reinstating border controls again, so Schengen is starting to close down. It's going the wrong way. I believe completely in the European project, but it has to be done properly. And at the moment, it is being done extremely badly.
And I think to do it properly, you have to do it from zero.
Yeah.
With no involvement. What was done? Okay, it was done. I will not analyze. It was done, but let's start with zero. And when I speak with the lawyers and everyone, they said, no, it's not possible. No, I cannot do it. I am not a lawmaker. I don't know how to write a law. When I write a law, it will be one page for the country and it will be enough, because it must be understandable for everyone and so on. So completely different approach. And what was interesting, I think it was today announced Milei, this new president of Argentina, that his country get out of debt today. That he generally is on zero.
I feel so sorry for people in Argentina, what they've gone through. It's such a wonderful place. It should be the powerhouse of South America.
I will be happy if the debt is zeroized, if after the reward will go to the people who deliver the results. So I think the time to cut down the expenses, it's not so easy. He did it his way. I think it can be done similar way. But the real time when there will be seen whether he is a good leader or not will be from today on. Will it improve the situation? If yes, great. If not, which I suspect, will lead to very short presidency and next forced leave of the president, I would say.
Yeah. But you can see, just with the European Union, the state of the German car industry now. It's one thing to say everybody must drive an electric car, but when the people say we don't want to drive electric cars, then you have to listen. You can't force somebody to do something they don't want to do. And this is the arrogance of the European Union at the moment. It is this fact that they've gone from being democratic to autocratic.
But I will say it's partly responsible is the automotive industry itself. So all the industries itself, because they live still in the image they plan for 10 years and that everybody will exchange every 5 years the car and so on. I spoke with them many times, with the suppliers and with those. How it's called, if you move something, then it has the force to move but by itself. It's called somehow in English, velocity. The velocity of this, because they are giants as well, it's so big. Even this giant is already dead. We see just the scavengers, as I mentioned last time. And unfortunately, they have the cover from above. I don't know whether you have read in Vienna, in Austria, they said that they plan in 2023, they plan that from 2025, all taxis in the city will be electric. 2% today.
Yeah, it is bonkers. But I think the core problem with all this is that cars are not the biggest polluting problem at all. There is far, far, far bigger problems we need to address. But what they did was try to make us all guilty. So they target us instead and say, you're responsible, you must change. So we take on the blame, we try to make the changes. The real polluters get away scot-free because we're blaming each other.
We really need to take it in our hands. But the question is how to do it without the force to be involved. In some way, there is, of course, if there will be a mass of people, if the people will unite. What?
Yeah, and you can see at the moment there's no one common movement, but it is just an individual thing. We don't want electric cars, and that's that. And then you can bankrupt the German automotive industry, but that's going to be a disaster for the whole of Europe. But you can't force people to buy what they don't want to buy. I was reading that in England, English builders, they drive white vans. It's like a substitute, I say throughout Europe, white van man. And an English builder would pay for a Ford Transit maybe 25,000 pounds for a new van today. The electric version costs 80,000. They simply can't afford it. They don't want it, and they couldn't afford it even if they did. So you got to pay 3 times the price for something which doesn't perform half as good, has no secondhand value. I mean, it is just disastrous economics, just to hide and protect the real polluters, because it isn't us driving cars.
You know what is crazy about it? To make the electric car is cheaper than to make the normal car. Of course, the batteries cost something, but it's not true that the other fuel and the components does not cost anything. So, but they still use the same psychology as before. We have to push the price. It's like with construction. You know, to build a house costs 100,000 pounds, let's say, but it cost the same before. But the lobby decided no, it will cost 1 million pounds. And who goes against? We will kick him out because we have the power to smash him down. So even the tiny houses, you know, I like the movement. I like it on the wheels. It's small, it's clever made, and so on. I like it, but not for 200,000 US dollars.
No. And you can see since COVID or during COVID, everything leapt up in price. What has come back down in price?
Nothing.
Nothing. No, nothing at all.
That's interesting that the price go up every time, goes up very fast, but never goes down or a little, just to say, you see, we did. It's with fuel in here, exactly that. So, and with many other items.
Yeah. My car is from 1975. Almost 50 years old. And I have no plans on replacing it, no plans on buying a new car. This thing will outlast me.
That's great. You know, in the past, if you have a TV, of course it was big and bulk and so on, but you repair it so long as it is possible. Then,
yeah,
because still you can repair, so they change the signal. And you can hardly transfer the signal from analog to digital or from digital to analog. No. So we have been pushed to change.
Yeah. Do you know one interesting, Michael, this car, it's from 75. It has a catalytic converter. It has power steering, power brakes, electric windows. So it has all the modern things. But if anything breaks, I can fix it. I don't need to buy a new computer system. I don't need to try and find a hacker who can reprogram it. I don't need, you know, if I buy a new bit, it doesn't need to be integrated into the operating computer unit. It is, and I have no training at all, but sitting through a book and learning how to take the brakes apart and replace them, and using your hands, it is so satisfying. It's really hard to explain the pleasure you can get out of doing something with your hands.
And I have the feeling that the cars and TVs and fridges and everything what was done in the past was somehow done with the idea in mind. Let repair that.
Yeah.
Because then we don't need a service so much. We don't need, so it was really the price of the car, but not the service, spare parts, and so on. It was given, and in Czech, Skoda, exactly that way. Lada from Russia, you know, Zhiguli, Lada, all these types of cars. We know when we buy it, immediately at the day when you buy it, you know you have to repair something. That was said by my dad. So
when I was a kid, every petrol station had a workshop. So if there's something wrong with your car, you took it to the nearest garage and they would fix it. You didn't have to go to the dealer to get it fixed. You know, it was just the guy who could fix everything.
I think, you know, this is what should come back. Of course, we have the robots and robotic dress, and so it will help us. It will help us. But I think that the car manufacturer should not be a big factory somewhere, but it should be someone who will take care of the car, who even exchange the engine from the combustion to electric. It's easy generally. The other way, it's hard. But this transfer, it's possible. So if I will not be driving anymore 1,000 kilometers in 2 days, which I did last week, I will be able, I am satisfied with my unicycle, but I will be able to have an electric, to have a distance to my mother, 200 kilometers, and I will be fine, you know, if somebody did it. And this is, I think, where the hands came back. And in very different aspect, you know, I just remember one of the speakers of the previous event, she said, Industry 5.0 is connected to artificial intelligence. That was her sentence. But you know, what is the name of the article which made me to the founder of Industry 5.0? Industry 5.0 from virtual to physical. The very opposite direction everybody is pushing. You know, so I shared at least the article with them, but I don't think they will somehow pay attention. We have less than 3 minutes left, Kevin.
Michael, I got an interesting thought for you. This is nothing to do with hands, it's to do with the head. The ancient Egyptians, they knew a lot about the afterlife and what was important to prepare you on your journey for the afterlife. The one thing of all the human organs they didn't preserve and gave no value to at all was the brain. That was just thrown away. That you didn't need in the afterlife. The afterlife was all about the soul and the spirit. Isn't that interesting?
It is interesting, but the question is, wasn't it because it's so, in some ways, so hard to keep it in a, I know we put it right now in the liquid, whatever, I don't know how it's called, in spirit, let's say, and it's there. But I don't think it's the reason. It's quite interesting what you just said. In the noon event, there was a speaker from the US, and she said, you know, we have the hands here in the 3 dimensions, but I live in, or I visit 4th dimension and the 5th dimension. And there you don't need the physical hands. You have maybe the virtual ones, but you don't need the physical ones. Kevin, it was such a great discussion again. I'm sure Bill will be disappointed again, but you know, Bill, we don't miss you. We think about you, and we will have you next week. Will you be available next week?
Yep, I'll be here.
Great. So, Kevin, have a nice time, free of waste and wasting in all its forms. Stay safe, be free, and enjoy the time with your hands, working and delivering palpable results. Maybe on the keyboard, maybe in the car, but all the time it will be a result which you can touch. And that's great.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Michael. See you next week.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye.